I saw Cynthia Larson at the grocery store today. She said that Jack is back home to run the family business while his brother Jeff is recovering from an accident. Brenda Johnson told her daughter Laura that Jack is Laura's father. Laura asked, "Do you remember him? Is he still your husband or ex-?" "I'm not sure if he's still your husband, Mom. I don't like talking about Jack. I don't know if we're still married. I've never received any divorce papers." Laura reluctantly admitted, "You've never filed for divorce, have you?" Brenda persisted, "No, I haven't. I thought he'd file for divorce. Your situation is the strangest I've ever seen." Brenda said he left 6 years ago, with no calls, emails, or letters. "You can't still love him, can you?" Laura lowered her eyes but said nothing. Her mother exclaimed, "Don't tell me you accept this. He abandoned you. It's his fault. Since he's back in town, why not divorce him? He was great when you married him, responsible, considerate, hardworking, and devoted. Then he left. You're still young, so you need a reliable man and a good family. I make my own decisions. I'm 27, I have a good job and I'm not a burden to you and Dad. Stop running my life, Laura. I just want you to be happy. You haven't been happy since Jack left. If he loved you, he wouldn't have left. He must have had a girlfriend. No way Jack would ever cheat." Laura's quick response surprised her mother. How could she still defend him after he abandoned her? They hadn't argued before he left, so what could have caused such an abrupt break? Brenda was sure Laura wasn't telling the whole truth. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Jack. He was the most handsome man she had ever known. Fun, calm, and devoted to her until Lauren knew that Jack's return to Stone Ridge would be awkward. She didn't know what to say to him. An apology seemed inadequate. She felt remorse, and their relationship was ruined. They could never be the same. 2 days after Laura's initial visit to her mother Kate, Lauren's younger sister, arrived from her summer job at a local media group after work. She mentioned she'd seen Laura's husband, who'd come to play some ads, and asked if Laura was interested. Their mother interjected, expressing interest herself, and asked about his appearance. Kate said anyone hoping he'd changed in looks would be disappointed, describing him as the most handsome man she'd ever seen. Brenda was skeptical, questioning whether he'd gotten fat or lost his hair. Kate explained he'd looked ragged, wearing a t-shirt and jeans. He was wearing a shirt and jeans, and he was chatting with Donna while Kate observed from another room, unnoticed by him. Laura asked quietly if he had said anything about regretting their breakup, but Kate replied that he only handed Donna the ad and paid her. She added that his daughter, who was with him, was stunning. Brenda was surprised to learn he had a daughter, leading Kate to explain. She said he'd left because he'd got another woman pregnant. She thought Laura was lucky to be rid of him, although Kate reckoned he'd still be attractive in his current appearance. Kate guessed the daughter was about 12 or 13, which made you wonder about the timeline since he was only 28. Brenda said it was impossible for him to have a 12-year-old. I'd say he's around 30. Kate explained that the girl, who was introduced as Kansas, was very attractive and athletic. Laura remained silent and listened as Kate mentioned that Kansas' blonde hair contrasted with Jack's dark hair. Kate pointed out the connection, noting that Laura, as Jack's wife, would technically be Kansas' stepmother. Kate said something that upset Laura, who stormed off to the bathroom. Kate sensed that there was more to the story than met the eye, noting that secrets in a small town rarely stay hidden for long. Meanwhile, as Jack and Kansas left the media office, Kansas asked about Kate, who had been staring at Jack. Jack explained that Kate was his ex-wife. Kansas asked if Laura, his ex-wife, was going to be there. Jack replied that his wife was as beautiful as her sister. He recalled how stunning Laura had been. Kansas expressed her curiosity about their past, particularly why Laura had cheated on him. Jack preferred to keep the details private, emphasizing that if Laura didn't share them herself, no one else needed to know. Kansas admired Jack. She was really grateful for how things had turned out, and she felt lucky to have Jack as a father figure, even though Brian, her biological father, had been the best. Jack smiled sadly as he remembered Brian's instructions for Kansas too. Kansas said she felt comfortable calling him Daddy. She also said she felt affection for Jack and that he accepted her. She noted that they shared the same last name, which she saw as a good thing. Jack thought about how Brian had planned for Kansas's future. He remembered the adoption process and Brian's wish for Jack to become her father. Kansas said she loved him. Jack was also concerned about finding a new mother while he was still legally married. He reassured her that they would focus on settling in before considering the divorce, and that any potential new partner would need to accept Kansas fully. Kansas hugged Jack, and he reassured her of his unwavering love and commitment. Jack told his mother that he and Kansas would always be family, and that he'd help with the family construction business, but he wouldn't tolerate interference in his personal life. His mother, Janet, agreed surprisingly quickly while washing up. Jack overheard. Kansas was talking to Janet. "Grandma, we saw Laura's sister Kate. She's very pretty. Do you think Laura is as pretty as her sister? If it were up to me, they'd still be together and have given you siblings, but it's not up to me, so let's change the subject before your father hears us." Janet concluded, "Dad drove me by the new school." Kansas told Jack as he joined them at the kitchen table, "Their soccer field looks great. I can't wait to try out for the team next." "On Tuesday," Janet said, "I didn't know you played soccer." She seemed a bit worried, as if she thought I was going to say I was one of the best players on the travel team in Thompson. In fact, I was one of the best players on the team, and we only lost one match. Kansas said, "She's being modest." Jack laughed and said, "She was far from the best player on the team. I think she should tell Jack who the coach was." She had a little chuckle at the thought of how Jack would react. He'd insisted that no one talk about Laura, but it seemed like it might backfire on him. Laura watched the girls practice soccer and noticed a tall blonde girl with impressive skills. As soon as she could, Laura approached her, sensing her presence. The girl turned to look. "Hi, I'm Laura's coach. Everyone calls me Coach or Coach Masterson. You seem to know a lot about soccer." The girl's jaw dropped. "Hello, ma'am. I'm Kansas Masterson. My daddy was your husband years ago. I like soccer, but if you think I can't be treated fairly, I'll understand and try field hockey. I don't want to put you in a difficult position." By now, the other girls had gathered. Laura realized that Kansas was Jack's daughter and assured her that playing time would depend on her behavior and effort. "Grandma Masterson knew you were a coach but didn't say anything because of Daddy's rules." Kansas grinned. "I can't wait to see his face when I tell him you're my coach, your father." "Is he here?" Laura asked. "No, HEK is driving the backhoe this afternoon," Kansas replied. "HEK has been helping Uncle Jeff since the accident, but he said some pretty harsh things about you," Laura said. "What do you mean he said some harsh things about me?" "He said you're the prettiest cheating strumpet he's ever seen," Kansas whispered. Kansas was taken aback by Laura's genuine distress. She had always hated Laura for supposedly cheating on Jack, but Laura's reaction didn't fit her expectations. Kansas saw how respected Laura was by the other girls. She walked away, rethinking her feelings. Kansas went to the bench, ready to be dismissed. The assistant coach arrived and demanded, "What did you say to Coach Masterson?" "What's your name?" "I'm Kansas Masterson." "I'm sorry if I caused a problem." Kansas apologized. "Masterson, are you related to Jack Masterson?" the assistant coach asked. "My father," Kansas replied. "I think you'd better leave, Coach Masterson. She's a wonderful woman. She doesn't need reminders of her husband, who was a bit of a loser," the assistant coach said. Kansas nodded and turned to leave but felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to find herself in the arms of a sobbing Laura. "I'm so sorry," Laura repeated, holding Kansas tightly. Kansas stood still as Laura regained control, and the other girls watched. In silence, "Your father is a fine man. Please stay and join the team," Laura said. "If you're like Jack Yook, you'd be a great addition. I promise I won't get emotional again." Come back, please. Kansas followed Laura back to the bench, facing the other girls. It's no use denying that I broke down earlier. I want you to understand why this is. Kansas Masterson is my ex. I was really taken aback when my husband's daughter turned up out of the blue. I haven't seen her father in 6 years, so it was a bit of a shock. Please treat her kindly, she isn't to blame for any of this. Laura asked, Is your mom around? I'd like to meet her and compliment her on having such a wonderful daughter. Kansas answered, It's just me and Daddy left. I'm sorry, Coach Masterson. Laura's mind raced. Kansas's mom died when she was 3, about 10 years ago. Jack was still in high school then, so that mystery could wait. We started off wrong. Laura replied, Let's start over. I'm Coach Masterson, and you're Kansas. Let's go over the team rules and expectations, then start practice. After practice, Kansas climbed into her grandmother's SUV. How was practice, honey? Janet asked. It went well. The girls are nice and some are good players. I think we'll have a good team. Kansas replied, How did you like the coach? I heard she's nice. Janet asked, Why don't you just ask what you really want to know? Grandma Kansas replied with a smile, Good. How did you get along with Laura? Was she surprised to find out who you were? Jack left her. I don't know how much he told you, but they seemed to love each other very much. Then one night, Jack drove away. Janet recalled, I don't think he ever spoke to Laura again. I heard she didn't know why Jack left. She can't blame Daddy. She knows exactly why he left. She drove him away. Kansas said angrily, Okay, I think Jack already talked to you about that. Janet reasoned, Can you tell me why he left? Only Dad or Coach can explain it. I promised Dad I would. He wouldn't tell anyone. Kansas replied when Jack got home. He asked Kansas about practice during dinner. It didn't start off well. Kansas admitted that the coach was upset when she told him her name, but they talked and it smoothed out. Jack noticed his mother's expression and knew there was more to the story. Your coach is a friend of Laura's. Do you think you'll get a fair evaluation? Laura Masterson is my coach. Dad, Jack was speechless, realizing he made a mistake by not. Jack's mother smiled. She knew what conclusion Jack had come to. Mom, can you tell Kansas and me more about Laura? We'll have to talk to her regularly. So, he got off one stormy night because he had a girlfriend, but that's not true. Daddy never cheated. Kansas, what did I tell you about that kind of talk? Jack, please speak and act respectfully around Laura. Don't do anything I'd have to apologize for. Kansas's face turned red as she looked down at her plate. Jack took a deep breath. What did you do, Kansas? How bad was it? I may have called her a bad name, but I apologized. I think we're okay now. She treated me the same as the other girls during practice. What did you say, Kansas? Janet couldn't hear, but saw Jack's unhappy reaction. Kansas, you told me something in confidence and you couldn't keep it a secret. Jack complained, You put me in an uncomfortable position. Learn from this mistake, he said. I regretted it as soon as I said it, he told me. It hurt her more than I expected. Kansas admitted she told the girls I was her ex. Laura was struggling to act normal through the team's training session at home. She sat in her favorite chair and cried for hours. School was still 2 weeks away, but fall sports practice had started. Laura still had to get ready for soccer practice, even though she didn't have to teach. She rushed to her SUV to get her team gear. She almost collided with Jack Masterson. Hi Laura, I want to apologize. I guess, Laura replied, though she found the idea of Jack apologizing to her ridiculous. Is there a problem? Kansas told me what she said yesterday. It was wrong. I tried to raise her better. I shouldn't have told her why we broke up. She and my cousin Brian are the only ones who know. You said she's young and wanted to hurt you. I couldn't help but notice how good Jack looked in a simple t-shirt. Jack was wearing a shirt and jeans. His muscles were defined, and his hair was longer but suited him. His jaw was strong, and his smile was infectious. She didn't say anything untrue. We both know that, Jack. Unless you think I'm beautiful, that's the only thing you can argue with. Laura replied, wiping away tears. I don't want you to suffer because of what happened 6 years ago. Jack replied, it's over. We're both moved on. It's time to bury the past. Laura repeated sounds. We'll just act like we were never in love, never married, and I never had fun with that guy. It should work. Jack wanted to hold Laura, but he was afraid of giving the wrong signal. He stood there watching her. Laura finally pulled herself together. I'm sorry, Jack. I made a mistake. I was foolish to sleep with that guy and let people think you dumped me for no reason. I kept hoping you'd come back and forgive me. I never told anyone the truth. To be honest, you don't deserve the nasty comments or the community's scorn. I forced you to leave. I know you'll never accept my actions. I wouldn't forgive myself either. Laura, I'm fine. I didn't have any ill feelings about leaving. People thought I was an idiot for leaving a beautiful woman. They questioned my sanity, not my character. Jack replied, you've always been a gentleman. Laura said, your daughter is delightful. Please don't be too hard on her. I think she's going to be my star player. It was nice to see you and lighten the mood. Jack replied, we'll see a lot of Kansas on your team. I hope we can get along without drama. You've become even more beautiful since we got married. Thank you. Laura replied, you look more chiseled than before. Thanks for straightening things out. The girl with the red hair said, he's got a great body. My dad is balding and has a big belly, so why did Coach Masterson dump him? Another girl asked, maybe I'll tell my mom about him during soccer season. Laura often took her parents out to dinner after the second night of practice. The family gathered for dinner. Her father asked, how's the team? She replied, we'll have the best team this year. He said, considering how much to say about Jack and Kansas. Kate asked if the best player was back. She has another year before high school. Laura said, you saw her the other day. You mean Jack's daughter? She plays soccer on your team. That's hard to believe. Believe it, Kate chuckled. Tell us about her. She's fast, athletic and smart. Most girls like her. I told her I was Coach Masterson, and she knew I was married to her dad. I think we'll get along great. Have you seen Jack? Janet asked. Did he talk to you? I spoke to him today before practice. We worked some things out. It wasn't as awkward as I thought it would be. Laura admitted, what exactly did you find out? Janet asked. He apologized. We had a mature conversation without accusations. Jack was a gentleman. Laura admitted, he even said I was prettier than when we got married. Well, you're not married. Janet said, you're free to find someone who will treat you right. I almost had it all, Mom. Dad, don't confront Jack. He's changed. He's matured. That's it. Janet asked, after 6 years, he comes back with a daughter and doesn't explain himself to you. Mom, it never occurred to Sis to slap him. She's still in love with him. Look at her. I can't explain it, but she loves him more now than when he left. Kate stated, I'm just a fool. I ruined the best thing I ever had. Laura sobbed, I deserve to be laughed at. Sis, you're not stupid. Kate replied, if you still love him. I'm on your side. I want to see you happy again. There's nothing anyone can do. He divorced me. We'll never be together. Help me accept that it's over. Kate hugged her sister. She decided to talk to Jack and see if there was any chance of being together again. The next morning, Jack was giving orders to his men. The men knew about his history with Laura and remained silent as she approached. What can I do for you, Kate? Jack asked professionally. I want to take Jack agreed to meet Kate for lunch at Ellie's at noon. He didn't want to refuse in front of others, as he always liked Kate and didn't mind having lunch with her. Kate was already seated when Jack arrived. She stood up and hugged him. "Thanks for coming, Jack. You look great. You've become a beautiful woman." "It's good for my ego to be seen with you," Kate replied. "You've always been a gentleman. Let's order and catch up. I have a lot of questions." Jack started answering Kate's questions as soon as they ordered. When I left Stone Ridge, I visited my cousin Brian. We'd chatted on Facebook and he was always friendly. Brian's wife Anna had died a few years earlier. Kansas was 7 when I first met her. Brian was diagnosed with cancer about 18 months ago. We became close and he decided to help me legally adopt Kansas before he died. We finalized everything just before he passed away. Jack explained sadly, "Oh Jack, that must have been hard. It's amazing a single man could adopt a." Kate told me how difficult it is to be a teenage girl. I didn't know Laura had divorced me, so I put down on the paperwork that I was married. Kansas is my life now. I can't imagine not having her. She's worried about the adoption and wants to help me find a wife." Jack replied, "Kate knew Laura." Kate thought Jack had divorced her, while Jack thought Laura had divorced him. Kate stored that info for later. "Jack, I wanted to talk to you about Laura. You know how beautiful she is. She graduated and got her teaching degree 2 years ago. She bought a small ranch and is adored. The kids at school say she hasn't seen anyone since you left. Is there any chance you two could get back together?" Kate said, "I'm sorry, Kate, but that's not going to happen. We've both changed and gone our separate ways." "There's nothing left between us," Jack replied, "but you've both changed for the better." Kate argued, "I'm sure she still loves you, Jack. What happened to make you leave?" "She never blamed me. She just said we disagreed and I left. She kept waiting for me to come back." Jack said with a faint smirk, "It took me 6 years, but now I'm." "Jack, so, what have you been up to?" Kate, "Well, Brian bought a large warehouse during the last recession. He built a gym and a dojo. We started holding yoga classes upstairs. I became a yoga instructor, personal trainer, and weekend sensei for teens." "Jack, did you ever finish your degree?" Kate, "Yes, I took night classes and even got a teaching certificate. It helped when I taught martial arts and yoga. Brian and I both had degrees, which made us seem more legitimate." Jack, "So long, Kate." Kate, "I enjoyed our lunch." Jack replied, "I'm not going back to Laura, but I hope we can remain friends." "I'd love that." Jack added, "Say hello to your folks for me. I'd advise you to avoid them. They're not happy with how things turned out with Laura." Kate advised, "That's not surprising." Jack chuckled, "I don't blame them for. If they disliked me, I'd be shocked if they didn't love me the next morning." Laura felt better. She had made peace with Jack and herself. She wished she hadn't cheated and that Jack still loved her, but she had to move on at practice. Laura saw Kansas doing stretching exercises with the other girls. She was soon joined by another girl. "How can you bend like that and keep your balance?" one girl asked. "After falling, it seems like you're defying gravity. My dad taught me stretching from yoga and martial arts. He could teach you, but I can't. I can do it, but I don't know how to teach it." Kansas admitted. "Your dad can do those stretches?" an incredulous friend asked. "I thought men couldn't bend as well as women, especially guys with muscles like your dad's." "They can if they work at it. Most men prefer martial arts, where they can punch and block. Most of Dad's physique comes from yoga. Maybe he can show us how." Another girl suggested that maybe we could stay longer after practice to learn. "I don't know if Dad has the time, though. Besides, I don't think Coach would agree to it. He's very careful about dealing with underage girls. There's always at least one adult present during sessions." Kansas, "If Jack wants to show the girls how to do stretches, I'll gladly stay and be a chaperone." Laura interjected, saying, "We could really get into our opponents' heads before matches." I was surprised when he picked up Kansas after practice. All the girls, Laura, and several mothers greeted him. I told them, my dad's a yoga instructor and might practice with us after practice for half an hour. Laura watched Jack's face soften as he listened to Kansas. She felt a pang of jealousy over the love he felt for his daughter. I suppose I can, but I'll need at least one adult present at all times. Jack said that Kansas told us we need an adult. I promised that a chaperone is necessary. Is it okay if I practice with the girls? Laura asked. Some of us moms would like to join too. I could use any improvement. I'm a slightly overweight, the woman with red hair added. We'll start tomorrow. Dress appropriately for yoga. I'll be teaching the girls, who will probably progress faster. The moms shouldn't be upset if the kids advance quicker. Jack warned. Jack never managed to keep his yoga sessions under an hour. The girls practiced hard, aiming to match Kansas's grace and strength. 3 single moms also showed up, clearly interested in more than just yoga. Jack enjoyed working with them. The girls were learning their names and knew many of their families from growing up in Stone Ridge. He appreciated how seriously they took his instructions. Laura was different. She dressed more conservatively than the other moms but looked amazing. She was trim, strong, and could master many yoga positions as well as, if not better than, the girls. She was friendly yet professional. Before the third game against a local rival, the girls did pre-match stretching. Kansas played music and got a Bluetooth speaker while leading her team. Players and fans from the other school watched in amazement. Their performance led to a solid victory over their opponent. After the game, Kansas approached Laura with an idea. Have you thought about entering Harper's soccer tournament? Our team fits perfectly in the 12 to 14 group. I think we could do well. I know about the tournament. Laura. Kansas admitted that the competition is intense and that the entry fee is $500. She said that the school board wouldn't approve that expense. What if they performed independently of the school and a local business donated the entry fee? Kansas asked seriously. Laura saw the determination in Kansas and the other girls. They wanted to compete and have her as their coach. She realized that the opponents will be much tougher. Every game will be against an all-star team. Star team. Laura said, Coach, I played in this tournament last year. We won 2 games and lost the third by 1 goal to the team that won the tournament. I know our team is good enough. We just need a good coach. You said you already have a sponsor. She was really enthusiastic and decided to support the team. Let's do it, Laura agreed. There's no better way to improve than to play against the best. Tell me what needs to be done. Thanks, Coach. The girls cheered. Kansas handed Laura a paper. Here's the site and your login. You need to register by midnight. The entry fee is already paid. You've got it all under control. Laura chuckled. Our team is called the Ridge Runners. We'll have t-shirts made. Shirts with our names, and the team name is Jack sponsoring the team. Laura asked Kansas privately. Our sponsor prefers to remain anonymous. Before their first game, a big crowd from Stone Ridge came to support them. Jack watched proudly as Kansas kept the team smiling and laughing. The other team watched their warm-up. The other team impressed us with their stretching and poses. The match started with them scoring 2 quick goals. Laura was concerned about her team's ability to bounce back. They hadn't lost a game all season until an opposing player was injured and helped off the field. Laura pulled Kansas off and sent in a substitute. You've got to stop that girl from scoring. She's making plays all over the field. Pressure her when she gets the ball. If we stop her, we can win. After that, the Ridge Runners settled down and kept the other team's best player from taking good shots. The half ended with a 2-point lead. I've told you before, girls, it's all about team play. The other team focused on Kansas and chased her all half. We need the rest of you to step up when Kansas moves to one side. Pass to the other side. Their goalie hasn't been tested much. Make her work. The Ridge Runners came out in the second half with a more aggressive attitude. They started shooting more and scored twice off rebounds with under a minute left. Kansas scored, giving the Ridge Runners a 1-point lead. The girls held on to win and advanced to the next round. They were over the moon, hugging each other and celebrating. Laura saw Jack hugging Kansas, one of the team moms, and she felt a bit upset, but she knew she couldn't complain as she turned to go to her parents. Jack wrapped his arms around her. His arms around her, she hadn't felt this close to him in almost 7 years. Jack lifted her off her feet effortlessly, which she thought was a great coaching job. He praised Kansas, told me you did well, thanks for treating the girls so well, thank you for sponsoring us and getting us rooms. Laura replied that some girls could never afford the trip, it was. Jack said she'd do anything to make Kansas happy. She also admitted that she wanted the other girls to have this experience because she enjoyed it so much last year. She thinks you're a great coach, Dad. Kansas called out, you've got a death grip on our coach. If you don't want me to call her Coach Mom, you should put her down so we can all hug her. Sorry. Laura, Jack said, I got carried away. I don't think she minded. Kansas pointed out that as Laura blushed, the whole team and most of the fans stayed to watch the next game to learn about their next opponents. The next morning, Kansas led her team to a 5-3 victory, scoring 3 goals and advancing the Ridge Runners to the semifinals. In the final, Kansas played a team they'd played before. Before the game, Kansas chatted with girls from the other team. It was clear she liked her former teammates, and Jack was popular with their supporters, especially the mothers. Several moms hugged Jack and wished him well during the game. Laura saw a different side of Jack when a referee, a local high school girl, made a mistake. A large man stepped onto the field shouting threats and obscenities at her. Laura headed toward the man, but Jack reached the girl first, hugging her as she sobbed. The crowd made a statement that was heard by everyone present. Jack Masterson is going to give this guy a piece of his mind. The rough man heard the statement and turned to Jack. I may have gotten carried away. I didn't mean anything by it. I apologized to Macy and then I'm leaving. Jack growled, patting the girl on the shoulder. The kids are doing a great job. They deserve our thanks, not bullying. The man considered Jack's words and then a woman's voice from the bleachers said, you better take Jack up on his offer or he'll punch you. You like a rented mule. Laura spotted the woman who had such faith in Jack. She was a short blonde woman in her 40s, dressed in jeans and a cotton shirt. Laura realized she had seen this woman offer a drink to the girl clinging to Jack. The man made a decision. I apologize, Mississippi. I overreacted. You girls are doing a great job. Those words were well placed. He left Macy. Jack still had her in his arms, but she was gradually calming down. He handed her a napkin to wipe her eyes, and she smiled, stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the cheek. Thank you, Jack. I knew you'd stop that man. Mom was right, you were ready to kick his back. Macy returned to the while the fans and players clapped and cheered. The officials discussed how much time was left and who had possession when play resumed. Macy's mom told the other fans that Macy had gone to Jack's dojo last year. She thinks Jack is amazing and I can't argue with that. One can insult a woman when Jack is around. Rick Jefferson is a pretty big guy and known to fight. I was afraid he'd hurt Jack, stated a Ridge Runner mom, Jack Masterson. Macy's mom asked, have you seen him compete? Jack would kick that guy's back. Play resumed with less than a minute left. Kansas gained possession and passed to a teammate who scored the winning goal when the game ended. Kansas hugged most of the losing team. Jack was proud of her sportsmanship. Macy's mom hugged Jack tightly. Macy knew she could count on her. Her grades have improved, and she's going to a state college next fall to become a teacher. You set her on the right path. Why was Rick Jefferson here? Asked the Ridge Runner father. Sarah is his niece. She scored the winning goal. Replied his wife. She must be embarrassed. The championship game was scheduled for the next morning. The Ridge Runners had an easy run to the finals, beating 3 teams along the way. Stone Ridge fans watched their girls excel with less than 3 minutes left. A Kansas teammate deflected a pass and Kansas scored to tie the game. Stone Ridge fans cheered loudly, but the other team took their positions and continued playing despite their efforts. The Ridge Runners lost by 1 goal as their opponent scored with just a few seconds left. Laura watched with pride as her girls hugged and congratulated each other. The winning team's parents and supporters expressed there was pride during the awards ceremony. The Ridge Runners players and fans applauded loudly when Laura accepted the second-place trophy. The top player from the winning team received the MVP award. Kansas proudly displayed the sportsmanship trophy to her team and fans after the ceremony. Kansas asked if she could ride home with some friends after ensuring they had room and responsible drivers. Jack agreed as the van pulled out. Jack felt someone take his hand. "She's a delightful girl, Jack. You're doing a great job with her," Laura said. Despite their divorce, she believed they should have polite conversations. "I have no idea how to raise a daughter. Women are a complete mystery to me." Jack admitted, "You've proven that," Laura remarked, hiding her hurt. Jack said, "I was wrong. I have no excuse. You were right to leave me. Can we talk without insults and anger? You're Laura, there's no need to dwell on the past. You've done a great job coaching Kansas, who has a lot of respect for you. I may have been a bit foolish when we got married, but I was never vindictive. I like Kansas and hope to stay friends with her after the season. If it's okay with you, I'd like to suggest that she needs adult role models." "You're good for her," Jack replied. "You've done well with her," Laura said. "I've heard only good things about you since you moved to Stone Ridge. Before that, not so much. I've learned from my mistakes. Your parents are watching us. They look upset." Jack noted that they blame you because he never told them why he left. Laura admitted that they're good parents. "It wouldn't have helped them to know. Thanks for talking to me. You're a good person." Laura later. She headed home with her parents. "What did you and Jack ask about Brenda?" "I told him he's doing a great job with Kansas. He said you are great parents." Laura replied, "Did he say that before or after seeing us shooting daggers at him?" Janet asked, "After he understands why you dislike him?" Laura said, "I don't see how he can be so reasonable except about his marriage." Her father grumbled 3 days later at dinner. Kate noticed Laura was in a bad mood. "What's wrong, sis?" "Sarah Jefferson told me her Uncle Rick reported Jack for lying on the adoption paperwork, claiming he was still married to me. There will be and Jack could lose Kansas if the investigation finds he lied on the adoption paperwork. He'd leave the country before losing her. He runs away when faced with a problem." Laura's father noted, "You're still married to him." Kate announced, "He thinks you divorced him, and you think he divorced you. You're just as married as the day you left the church." Brenda dismissed, "It doesn't matter. She said he could live with them and be the family he promised the court." Kate called Jack and told him and Kansas they could move in with her. Brenda said, "I won't stand for it." Laura said, "Jack isn't cruel. He would never hurt me." Janet answered the phone and said, "Jack, it's Laura. Can I talk to you in private?" "I'm sorry, Laura, but I can't talk now. I'm going on a trip." "Jack, you don't need to pack for a long trip. Please don't take Kansas away from me." Kansas stopped sobbing and looked at Laura. Janet gasped, "If you're trying to take Kansas away from me, you're in for one hell of a fight. I want you and Kansas to move in with me. If you're under investigation, it'll show we're a family. We can still help Jeff with the business, and Kansas can stay in town and go to the same school. That might work until you decide." Jack said, "You've had enough of us. You could kick us out anytime." "I can't risk Kansas getting hurt," Jack replied. "I know you wouldn't do that. I messed up once, but that doesn't define me now. I'll put your name on the contract or let you pay the mortgage if it helps. I love Kansas like a daughter and would be honored to be her mother. Dad, can we try Coach? She's a nice person, she won't hurt us." Kansas pleaded, "What are your options?" "Jack, you could run to a country with no extradition. This isn't a movie. You have a chance to give Kansas a stable home and a good school with her friends. Do what's best for her." Laura insisted, and Jack fell silent, finally agreeing. The three women squealed with delight, and Kansas rushed to hug Laura, who kissed her forehead. Tears streamed down Laura's face. "I hate to interrupt, but we should move quickly. We don't know when officials might come." Kansas said with a grin, "It's simple maths. 2 people share a room, so one gets their own." "I'm not sharing a room with you," Jack stated. "Of course not," Kansas agreed. "I'm a teenage girl and need my own room. You and Laura are married, so sharing a room shouldn't be a problem. We're pretending to be a normal family." "Be a normal family," Jack replied. "Sharing a bed goes beyond that." "Is it that hard?" Laura interrupted, "Kansas should have her own room. You and I can share mine. I have a double bed, so you can keep your honor intact. I'll give you space in my closet." Jack and Kansas moved in before 11:10 to midnight. Laura was moved to tears when Kansas asked her, "Can I call you Mom if it becomes a habit?" "It will seem natural if someone checks on us, honey," she replied. "Nothing would make me happier." "What about school?" Kansas inquired. "I'm going to be your mom anyway, so it'll be okay," Laura replied. "I don't think that's a good idea. Jack advised that we act like we've been a family for a while. If Kansas called you coach last week, she should keep doing it. I'll be the only one going home with my mom after practice, helping her cook dinner and cleaning the house. Kansas promised that I can't wait to be part of a real family." Jack was about to warn Kansas not to go too far when Laura caught his eye and shook her head. Jack got up. "Now you sleep in pajamas under the covers. You used to sleep undressed." "I try to be a gentleman since Kansas started living with me." Jack explained, "I won't call the police if you accidentally touch me in your sleep." Laura replied, "If you forget who I am and act accordingly, I won't complain." "Thank you, Laura," Jack said. "It's hardly a problem," Jack assured her, turning onto his back and falling asleep. Jack woke up at 5. In the morning, he noted that he was still on his side of the bed. The next evening, Laura stopped by her mother's house after soccer practice. Kansas followed her in and stood before Brenda. "Your daughter is my mom now. Can I call you Grandma?" Brenda's resolve to show disapproval dissolved. "Of course you can," she said, hugging Kansas. "Would you like some milk and cookies?" she asked. "Mom's heart has melted," she added with a smile. Kate joked, "I'm your Aunt Kate and you're my favorite niece. We're going to have so much fun." "I'm getting a new grandmother," and Kansas replied with a smile. "Hopefully we'll spend more time together. Dad knows Grandma doesn't like him, so we'll meet when he's working." "I really like your dad." "A handsome man," Kate replied. "How do he and your sister get along?" "I guess they spent half an hour together yesterday." After an hour of negotiating the rules for the bedroom, Kansas added, "I don't have a normal family yet." "Do you think there's a chance?" Kate asked. "Dad's quite the catch," Kansas replied, "and Mom looks amazing." "I think there's a chance," she admitted, glancing at Laura, who blushed. "Are you thinking of going back to Jack?" Brenda demanded. "That's not the point," Laura replied. "I came for your recipes, not to discuss my marriage. I don't know how things will turn out. Jack doesn't like me much right now, so take comfort in that." Jack came into Laura's house just as she and Kansas were starting dinner. He looked around and then went outside with a notebook and measuring tape. After dinner, Jack told Laura what he wanted to do. He said, "I want to add an extension to the house. I'd like to extend it 26 SE by 14. That way, you'd have a large bedroom, a big bathroom, and a walk-in closet. In the closet and a half bath for guests. Can I show you my plans?" "That sounds great, but I can't afford it. I've already struggled with my mortgage." Laura replied, "I'm willing to pay for the addition. You're making a huge sacrifice for Kansas and me. It'll increase your property value and give us more room." Jack explained that he'd agree to sleep with Laura the whole time they lived together, on the condition that she agreed to build a bedroom. Laura demanded to know if he'd agree or leave. Jack saw she was serious and glanced at Kansas, who was smirking. Jack said the soccer team remained undefeated as the season ended. He heard Laura recruiting Kansas for volleyball. Jack noticed how close Kansas and Laura had become. They joked, shopped, cooked and played sports together. Kansas was happier than ever. Jack and Laura were happy for her. Laura's relationship was a bit of a mess. She respected his boundaries and remained friendly, never complaining about the house renovations. Jack brought in a backhoe and worked through the mild autumn, aiming to finish by Christmas. Kansas and Laura were excited about the expansion, with Kansas moving into Laura's old room, gaining her own bathroom and closet. Jack and Laura discussed how to handle any agency inquiries about Kansas. They developed a solid plan, but began to wonder if anyone would even investigate. They continued their sleeping arrangements, both wearing pajamas. One night as Jack lay in bed, Laura tensed and placed her hand on his chest, then fell into a deep sleep. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Laura and Kansas came home to find Jack talking to a blonde woman in the driveway. Later, Jack told Laura it was Beth Harding. Laura tensed and asked what she wanted. Was she angry? Her husband Chuck has a brain tumor and is dying. She asked if I would visit. Jack told him, "Don't do it. He wants to hurt you. Please don't let him." Laura pleaded, "I told her I would. I want to hear what he has to say." Jack replied, "He'll call me a strumpet and try to humiliate you. He's mean. It's my fault, but if he was a real man, he wouldn't go after a married woman." Laura asked, "Why did you sleep with him? That night, you didn't seem in pain. You kept saying his name and how good he was. I thought about eliminating you both, but I decided to leave." Instead, Jack thought back, "I don't know why I did it, Laura. He was the big man on campus, a soccer star. I was young and foolish, thinking I could get away with it. It was my only affair and it ruined my life when I found your ring on the kitchen table. I knew it was over then. I live with the guilt every day. I love Kansas, but we're not really a family. I can't make it up to you. We'll never have the love that binds a family together. It's all my fault, and I live with that knowledge." Jack asked softly, "Why didn't you tell me you weren't happy or wanted to try other men?" "I didn't want other men. I just wanted to feel special for one night," I replied. "I became smarter after you left. You became kinder and more devoted. Believe it or not, that was the last time I had physical intimacy with Laura. You're the only man who ever made love to me," she said. "I now know the difference between love and physical intimacy. It's huge," I added. "I'll never forget rushing home from that seminar only to find someone had taken my place." Jack replied, sounding pretty downcast, "You almost liquidated me, Laura. Just because you apologized doesn't make up for the pain I've endured for 6 years." "I know, Jack. I don't deserve forgiveness. I've suffered too. I'm in a sham marriage to a wonderful man and a beautiful daughter. Every time I look at you or Kansas, I'm reminded of my stupidity. The pain has grown as my love for you and Kansas has grown. I know you can never love me again and I can't be Kansas's mother if you don't. I'm just trying to enjoy every day we have together, knowing it will end soon." Laura admitted every night, "I hope you touch me, kiss me, make love to me. But it never happens. You just put up with me. It's my fault. Karma's a cow." In early December, Jack visited Chuck Harding in the hospital. Chuck looked like a skeleton. "Jack, thanks for coming. If you want to slap me or strangle me, go ahead. I deserve it." Chuck said, "I just came to see how happy I am that you're dying." Jack said, "If you look closely, you'll see me smiling. I saw your ring on the table to this day. I've never seen a man in as much pain as you were. I owe you, but I can't pay you back. My life isn't worth anything. I'm just offering you a chance to watch me die. It might bring you comfort." Harding said, "How does your wife feel about that?" Jack asked, I told her what I did. She understands. It'll hurt Beth, and she doesn't deserve that. Why did you do it, Chuck? Laura was everything to me, and you ruined it. Jack was angry because he realized he was a fool. He said he didn't care that his marriage broke up. Laura meant nothing to him. He was ashamed to admit it. It was personal. Jack asked, "Weren't you trying to ruin my life?" He hardly knew who you were. Laura was just a beautiful woman to him. She was a little married wife on the side. If you weren't so sick, he'd kick your back. Jack said he'd do whatever he could if he weren't so sick. Chuck replied that he'd grown up, but it was too late. There was no excuse for his actions. Jack said he'd be doing the world a favor if he held this pillow over Chuck's face. Chuck said that was true, but Jack would be in trouble. Liquidating a dying person is still a crime. Chuck said that was why he should just visit when he could. Maybe he'd see Chuck going on a happy hunt. Jack had never been angrier. This guy had ruined his marriage. Because he wanted another man's wife, Jack. Laura was the perfect wife, devoted and willing to share her life with him. Then Chuck Harding decided he wanted her. "I guess I'll take you up on your offer, fool." Jack replied, "I'll be pissing on your grave in a few days." Jack kept his word and visited Chuck several times a week, but didn't tell Laura or Kansas. He knew his intentions were unhealthy. On his third visit, Chuck's wife Beth and their little boy were there. Jack nodded to her. He sat down but soon left the room. He couldn't celebrate even a vile man's death while his family was there. Jack vowed to keep watching Chuck die. The next time Chuck was in a pensive mood, Jack said, "You left because my wife and child were here, didn't you? It's hard to celebrate my death when you see innocent people suffering." Chuck said, "I'm here to see you die. I have no issue with your family." Jack wasn't going to be swayed on Christmas Eve. He visited Chuck again, who had weakened considerably. Chuck said, "I hate what you did, but I can't keep hating you. I've realized the best revenge is to live well. I'll make sure your wife and son are taken care of. You'll die knowing that the man whose life you ruined is taking care of your family." Jack said, "I can see why you think that's revenge. You're not good at it. My despicable act somehow secured my family's future." Chuck replied weakly, "It's the best I could come up with. It would feel so good to forgive her, to have her in your arms, to have children with her. Wouldn't that be better than punishing her?" Chuck asked. "Screw you, Harding. You're the one who said I forgave you." Jack snarled. "Not in so many words, but you did. Please give Laura my apologies." Chuck said softly. Jack left the hospital furious. He thought he'd been forgiven and wanted Jack to forgive Laura. Jack was still angry as he. Jack drove home, regretting his visit to Chuck. When he arrived, he found his driveway clogged with cars. He had forgotten about the Christmas party Laura and Kansas were throwing. As he entered, the guests fell silent. Laura and Kansas were serving drinks when Jack walked in, looking upset. "What's wrong, Jack?" Laura asked anxiously. "Do you really want to be my wife?" Jack demanded. Yes, I do," Laura replied quietly. Her husband is all her love, she belongs to him, exclusively. Jack said firmly, "I agree." Laura said, tears in her eyes. "A husband takes care of his family. He deserves respect." Jack continued. Laura nodded, tears in her eyes. "A good wife won't complain if her husband takes her whenever he needs her, including right now on that big bed. Not if he loves her and she loves him." Laura agreed. Jack scooped Laura into his arms. His arms were around me, and Kansas closed the door behind us. "Okay, Daddy," Kansas replied, closing the bedroom door. "I'll entertain the guests." "What just happened?" Laura's mother asked. "Laura's going to be just fine," Kate said with a laugh. Half an hour later, Jack and Laura emerged from the bedroom, freshly showered and in new clothes. Laura snuggled up to Jack as the guests began to chat. That didn't take long. One of Jack's workers said they hoped the boss had finished the job well. Thanks for asking, Laura," said kissed Jack on the cheek. Jack said, "I don't know what happened between you and my daughter, but her mother and I are glad things are better now." Laura's father said, "Just don't do it again." "That won't happen. Laura and I will be together from now on." Jack replied, "Funny how nothing came of it." Kate said, "I was interviewed at school." Kansas said, "I said we had a great family. My mom and dad loved me and each other. I wanted us to stay together. Why were you so emotional when you got home?"